What's up guys, Alex here with the Big Pixel. Today we're doing a budget laptop upgrade and teardown video. First we start with a massive shout out to Crucial Memory for sending across the SSD and RAM for this project. So to start, we will need a small Phillips screwdriver, a pair of tweezers and a magnetic part dish that would also be useful. So why the Lenovo X220? For me, the X220 is a perfect little machine for someone on the go. It's small, it has good battery life and also is one of the best typing keyboards on a laptop in my mind. First we remove the battery and place it to one side. Then we move to the cover that shields the RAM. It has two screws, so let's go ahead and remove them. Then from there we remove the stick of RAM by pushing on the two tabs that hold the RAM in place. After that we'll move on to the enclosure that covers the hard drive. In this case I have a small SSD in place at the moment. Let's remove that by taking the screw out of the door, then pulling on the black tab. This will release the SSD. Now down to the next part of the disassembly, we remove the two screws marked with the keyboard sign. This will release the keyboard from its housing. We then open the laptop, then carefully push the keyboard up, and this will cause the front of the keyboard to lift. Without damaging the keys, lift at the front of the keyboard, but don't lift up all the way because there is a flex cable attached to the motherboard. We then move on to removing all of the screws from the bottom of the laptop casing. They're located all over the bottom, so check you've got all of them before moving on to the next step. Once all the screws are removed, we now move on to the wrist rest and the touchpad. There are small connectors that attach the touchpad to the motherboard, so make sure they are removed first before trying to unclip the wrist rest. To unclip the wrist rest, pull towards yourself from the top and it should unclip easily. Now that we're getting to the insides a little more, I would recommend checking to make sure you haven't got anything plugged into the express port in the side like I did. Now we're going to remove the Wi-Fi antenna connectors from the Wi-Fi card. Be very careful with these connectors, they are very delicate and easily bend. I use the tweezers to undo the connectors. While undoing these connectors, take note where the tape is before removing it. It will make life a lot easier when putting it back together. It also might be an idea to take a picture of the area so that when you come back to reassemble it, you know where each connector goes on each card. Once the connectors are unplugged, make sure the cable is loose from the black bracket. This is going to be removed next. There is also a connector on the right side for the monitor. Be sure to unplug this one as well. The bracket isn't held in place with two screws and some clips, so remove the screws first, then lift from the bottom edge and the bracket will come out. So the next step is removing the VGA connector threads. If you have a thin socket that can clear the plastic housing, that would be advised, but in my case I didn't have one, so I used some needle nose pliers to remove them. Next we're going to remove the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth cards. Remove the screws that attach the cards to the chassis. They will spring up, so be careful not to damage them. Now we check to make sure that we've disconnected the last of the screen connectors as well. Now we move to the rear to remove the screen, so unscrew the screws holding the hinges and pull up and place the screen to one side. To the last of the screws that hold the motherboard in place, the screws are located here, here, here and here. We will need to loosen the power connector bracket as this will hold the board still in place. Once all the screws are out, carefully lift the motherboard out of the chassis. Now comes the fun part, removing the CPU cooler from the motherboard. Don't forget to unplug the fan from the board first. Start by loosening the screws in a diagonal pattern so that equal pressure is spread across the CPU area. We're going to start by cleaning off all the old thermal paste off the cooler. I find paper towels and rubbing alcohol works perfect, and just clean until shiny. Time to apply the new thermal paste. I only use the pea-sized method, but it depends on the size of the chip, so use whatever method you're happy with. So for reassembly of the cooling system, repeat tightening in a diagonal pattern until tight. Now we're going to do everything in reverse. I won't drag the video out with commentary, but I will fast forward the footage to get to the SSD and RAM upgrade. Now we get to the RAM upgrade. I have 16 gigs of Crucial DDR3L SODIMM memory in two 8GB sticks. First, we carefully click the RAM modules into place, making sure they're pushed in far enough. Then we move to the SSD, which is an MX500 500GB SATA 3 SSD. Then we slide the SSD into the drive sled and then push it into the side of the laptop. Once we've put all the covers back on and the battery back in the laptop, we are complete. All we need to do now is install a fresh copy of Windows 10 on our brand new shiny SSD. So another massive shout out to Crucial. Without these wonderful people, these videos would be very hard to do, so a massive thumbs up for them for their help. Check out where to buy the parts in the video description. Thank you for checking out this teardown/upgrade guide for the Lenovo X220. Don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my other content.